Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a Democrat and the 32nd President of the beautiful United States, who also alone served more than 2 terms, which was prohibited since the time of the first president. He had served 2 terms which had passed like most presidencies. For the most part it was manageable for him, and he planned on retiring after his second. Though for his re-election in 1940 he found himself stuck between his personal life and his duty to this country. His 3rd term came with much resistance from parties that believed he was just power-hungry. Some even accused him of being a dictator. Our president being able to serve a maximum of 2 terms in a lifetime was a tradition that some worried was in danger. They believed it was unfair. They believed that an exception to this tradition wasn't meant to ever occur. They strongly felt that FDR shouldn't return for a 3rd term. However, FDR understood the complications with these Americans and his unprecedented re-election, and he hoped that the people would put their good faith in him. So he stated when he said, "I must trust to the good faith and common sense of the American people to accept my own good faith and do their own interpretation." FDR said this in his acceptance speech. Many of those who knew FDR said that his return to office was inevitable, according to James A. Farley, friend and advocate for his campaign. William Lichtenberg, a scholar of FDR, said that he never left presidency voluntarily. Though FDR was physically sick from a mild heart attack as well as being diagnosed with polio, he still pushed on because he knew that his presence in office was needed. James A. Farley, a postmaster general who served under terms of FDR, said that he, being FDR, just didn't think anyone else was big enough to be president, and that's not said unkindly. In his acceptance speech, he also addressed the mixed feelings he carried regarding his re-election when he said, "As almost everyone does sooner or later in this lifetime, in a conflict between deep personal desire for retirement on one hand and that quiet invisible thing called conscience on the other." Though he was stuck between the two for a while, he ultimately decided to run again for the 3rd term. The tipping point for him is when the Great War in Europe had begun. This is when he fully understood he needed to run again for president. Before the situation in Europe began to escalate, he stated, according to History News Network, he would only consider running for another term, he told a few confidants, if Nazi aggression in Europe exploded into a major shooting war, and if there was no one else who could step in. The circumstances were grave, and FDR was set on helping America through the war that was erupting in Europe. FDR was smart. He knew that if he was open to an unprecedented 3rd term, many would have felt he was power hungry right off the bat. But if he had come out publicly about his planned retirement, he would be seen as a quitter. History News Network explained, if he announced he intended to retire, he would immediately become a lame duck, whom foreign and congressional leaders could ignore with impunity. So like many of his decisions, he remained still and silent, and he found many of his best decisions were never even made. He usually waited for the situation or problem to resolve itself over time, and if it didn't, then FDR would have more knowledge on how to approach the issue. Today, people do not understand how difficult it was for FDR to step upon that podium for the 3rd time and read his acceptance speech while he was battling polio. Many at the time of his 3rd acceptance speech reading were oblivious to FDR's condition, and FDR wanted it that way. He did not seek pity from the American people, however, he became a symbol of hope and strength, something that can be very difficult to do while sitting in a wheelchair. So it was in the interest of the American people to not know about his condition at the time. FDR was a great leader of the United States, and what made him so great is that he pushed himself through his duties to his country, even though he knew that at any time he could drop dead. He set the scale for the following presidents to act selflessly when America needs you. Done.